country offers, because there will be some contrast here. So when my friends that live abroad, because I studied abroad for a while, and then a lot of people, when I'd say I was from Montenegro, they didn't really know much about the country. I wasn't surprised, but after a while I got tired of repeating the same thing over and over and over again. So when they would ask me about borders, it's surrounded by 6 countries in total, so you really need to know where to look. It's just a dot on the map. The territory is of 13,812 square kilometers. So to compare that, for those of you that come from the States, our entire country is roughly the size of Connecticut.
Oh, wow.
Or if we compare it to, I don't know, Italy, because we have Italy on the other side of the Adriatic, you could fit more than 20 Montenegros in Italy. It's more than 20 times smaller than Italy. And it's covered in mountains. Roughly about 2/3 of the country are mountains. And then when someone tells you, oh, hi, you'll be visiting one of the smallest countries in Europe, and on top of that, 2/3 of it are mountains, you don't expect to find much else besides mountains here, but you'd be surprised at the diversity, in fact, of different types of landscapes that we have there. Glacial lakes, the deepest canyon of Europe is here, then the biggest lake of the Balkan Peninsula is here, one of the most beautiful bays in the world is here, which is the bay that we're looking at right now, and it's part of a UNESCO made list of the 27 most beautiful bays in the world. We have there's sandy beaches, but also cliffy areas. There's a little bit of everything here in such a reduced territory, so those contrasts, they stand out because the country is so tiny.
Look at these scars here.
So now we are a bit, it's a bit taller now, so you can see both sides of the bay. We see the hill Vrmat separating Pivat and Kotor. And we are already approaching curve number 14. So I started telling you a little bit about Montenegro and about the contrasts that we have here. And the contrast, different versions of Yugoslavia. So in Montenegro, we mentioned that it was independent the first time it was internationally recognized as an independent state. That happened after the Treaty of Berlin, and that was a monarchy. Montenegro was a monarchy back then. So that independence was lost when Montenegro was joined to Yugoslavia. That happened in 1918 after the First World War. So the level of the entirety of Europe, there was unification processes going on. Italy was unified roughly around the same period too. So here they created the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenians. That's kind of the first, let's say the first draft of what would later become Yugoslavia.
They're in Montenegro.
Oh, that's large.
We started our adventure.
Yeah. And that board's gonna pass that?
Backing up.
Everyone, you can cancel your Netflix subscriptions. You don't need them.
Breaking his car.
Oh no! Oh no! He's got that little trailer.
That's the trouble.
Yeah. He's cursing. I'm sure he is.
Sound close.
Yes.
Trailer is
You can't even do that.
Try
It's not cooperating very well.
Well, it's very difficult.
That is not an easy thing.
So c'era una così un'Italia partiva,
And I just drop off. Yeah.
I'd have jumped off.
Keeps getting better.
Wow.
Couple of shots of whiskey. Of course, that was a joke. You know, when I was my grandparents, they lived in Cetinje, which is the town that we'll go to later. So growing up, I used to take this road a lot, not on buses, but my father would always take this road to take when we go and see Grandpa and Grandma quite often. So whenever I'm on this road, and that's really, I remember it every single day. Whenever there was someone on the car with us, my father would always share the same joke. And what I found fascinating is the fact that he'd laugh as if it was the first time hearing the joke for him too. So it goes to something along the lines of, okay, on the same day there's a priest and a driver die. And on their way up to the heavens, they're chatting and trying to determine who'll get into heaven first. And then the priest says, oh my god, I mean, it's only fair if it's me. I mean, after all, I've dedicated my entire life to faith and to God. And the driver agrees. But then, surprise, surprise, they get to the gates of heaven and it's the driver that gets in first. And now the driver says, okay, I'll accept it, of course, but could I just know why was he let in first? And then the response that he got was, well, while you were preaching, people were sleeping, but while he was driving, they were praying.
That's a good joke.
So there you have it. I think this road, it's safe to say, has heard a lot of Hail Marys. So curve number 18. Above sea level, that's roughly 3,000 feet. And right here, if we look right in front of us, we see this this forest, and we can, looking at it, kind of understand why this country is called Montenegro. So what does it mean? Montenegro means Black Mountain. It comes from, at first, to a lot of people, it sounds like it comes from Spanish, Montenegro. However, it comes from a Venetian dialect. Because it was in the early 1400s that when the Venetian sailors would kind of approach this area, especially on a day that was a bit, let's say, a bit cloudy, rainy, they'd say, "Eccole le montagne negre," or "Guarda queste montagne negre," look at these black mountains, here they are, the Black Mountains. That's what they would say as they would see this area that was covered in mountains, and those mountains were covered in thick pine forests. So then, that's how the country was named, was that expression. Montenegro, first mentions of it can be found at early 1400s. It was the Venetians, once again, that named the country. So up until today, it's still it's still the name of the country, and it's a good description of what the country is, because 2/3 of Montenegro are mountains, and roughly about 60% are forests. So more than half of our country are forests, and that explains why it's not a densely populated country. There's just 630,000 people living here. In Montenegro, most of our towns have between 20 and 50,000 inhabitants, but the capital it would be the biggest city in Montenegro with 200,000 inhabitants, so roughly 1/3 of the country lives in the capital. But then even the capital, if you compare it to other metropolises, there's a small town feel to it as compared to some other European capitals. But in Montenegro, that's the most densely populated area is the capital, which coincidentally is also where some of our few valleys are. So it's in a valley, and so Montenegro is the name of the country. But here you won't catch Montenegrins saying Montenegro a lot, because we say Crna Gora, and it means the same. Crna is black, Gora is mountain or hill. So that's it's the same meaning, but translated, so Montenegro, but translated in our own language, Crna Gora. And then some countries will translate the expression Montenegro into their own language. So if a Turkish person mentions Montenegro, they will say Karadag, or in Russia they will say Cherna Gora. So it depends on the country. Some countries simply translate it, others use the expression Montenegro that was coined in the early 1400s. And one of our symbols are our black pines. We have a lot of black pine forests in the north of Montenegro. We have them here too, but due to the maritime industry and shipbuilding industry that we have had here in the south, there are fewer of them. We had a referendum here, and people voted. We peacefully separated from Serbia. Not only Serbia, but we left that Yugoslavia area. That whole story behind. So lived in 3 countries, and I think that Montenegro is also one of the few countries that can say that at a certain point all of its inhabitants were billionaires. Surprise, huh? Well, it's due to a hyperinflation. In the 90s, late 80s and 90s, there was a hyperinflation here involving the Yugoslav dinar. And that was the currency here, and it was so bad that I remember people telling me how money would just lose its value instantly. People were so frustrated they would throw money out on the streets because it was completely worthless. And you'd have to go in the morning and grab buy as much as you could, because by the afternoon your salary would be worth nothing. And then it was here in Montenegro that the government they tried to do many things up until, well, the only resort was to use a different currency. That's how they introduced the Deutschmark, because in the 90s the euro didn't exist yet, and later on, from when euro was introduced in Europe, we got the euro as well. So we've had it from the very beginning, and that's how and that's why. But once again, now that we're past all of those turbulent times, we can joke about it and say that's why we say that at least we know what it feels like to be billionaires. I have a stash of bills at home that's 500 million dinar. That's just one bill. In some of the souvenir shops, you might see bills with crazy numbers, and that's what it is. They sell them as souvenirs now.
So we are the top of Montenegro. We stop over here, and these are the 2 bays you can find. These are the people here.
Which are made here. So after the snack, while we go through the village, I'll tell you a little bit about the village, that prosciutto production and all that. And then there's also beverage included, and you can get water, juice, soda, even wine or beer. And then once you get your snacks, it's free seating, so you can choose where you want to sit. And there are restrooms inside. I do suggest we'll have about, let's say, half an hour there. It should be enough. But because the groups are coming in, I guess that there will be in total maybe about 90 people at the same time, to take advantage of the fact that we'll get there first, get the best tables, and use the restrooms as well. I mean, we will have, it should be enough time, but it's just kind of with a shot of rakia, then whatever was left in the shot glass, you use it to disinfect your hands. and this is not a joke, we really do this. If you're out of Windex, you can use it to clean windows as well. So, and my grandma, she was very funny. My grandma used to say that rakia saved her marriage. And I remember chatting with her. Her and Grandpa, they got along really, really well. And once I was chatting with her and I said, Grandma, come on, spill the beans. What's the secret? How come you and Grandpa get along so well? And she said, oh, honey, it's easy peasy. She said, you know how I start my day with a shot of rakia? I said, yes. What does it have to do with it? And then she said, well, I add another shot to that, and suddenly Grandpa becomes way more bearable. So there you have it. You can try rakia as well if you want, but rakia is something that's typical not only in Montenegro but the countries in the region as well. They will have their own version, but just a heads up, when we have rakia, it's not the taste that we don't have it for the taste. People are after the effect. So it's very, very strong, very, very strong, but you can try rakia as well if you'd like. We're getting closer to the restaurant. There's even a zip line in this area that we'll see later. Okay, so we'll get off the bus here and then we'll go together down the stairs to the right. That's where we get our snacks.